The point of this study was to find out what's the most important thing for employers. What are they looking at?
Okay.
And so number one is timeliness, which makes sense. You want to be on time.
Okay, so pocket watch or watch on your phone.
Right.
Helpful.
Yeah, helpful to actually know how to read those things. Number two was preparedness.
Okay.
And number three, believe it or not, was being well-groomed. So it's one of the top three things interviewers and employers look at when you go to a job. So it's obviously important to be well-groomed. Welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast, the podcast where we have real, honest conversations with authentic people. My name is Lanston, and today we have Alvin Cooper with us today. So Alvin Cooper is actually a men's clotheir, and so we're going to have a conversation about professional clothing. So before we get started, Alvin, just briefly introduce yourself to the people so they know who you are.
So Alvin Cooper III, owner of a company called Cystled, and I'm a haberdasher is my official title, which is just kind of a fun word. I think we'll probably talk a little more about that
down
later. So
sure.
I'll leave it as haberdasher for the moment.
Okay.
But from Denver, native, lived in the area my whole life, and lived downtown. Love Denver. It's home. Do a lot of traveling, and yeah, it's just been a great opportunity. I've been in the haberdasher business for quite a while, so 9 years, and then fashion kind of goes back a long way for me. So
okay, well, we'll jump into all of that, and it's super exciting because, as you know, professional attire goes a long way. As far as if you're in a professional career, if you were interviewing for something, I mean, let's just be honest, deaths, etc. I mean, it's always important and always comes up to dress professionally. So we're going to break it down. But you mentioned the word already, haberdasher. So what the heck does that even mean?
Haberdasher. I love the term haberdasher mainly because when I first started in this business, I was, referring to myself as a stylist, and everyone thought I did hair. And clearly, I don't have. I mean, granted, I can grow this out, but I do shave it on purpose. But most people thought I did hair, and I'm like, well, how can I describe myself? I'm a men's fashion stylist. People are like, I don't know what that means.
Right.
And so I found the term haberdasher, which is actually an old English term that basically means someone who sells fine men's clothing and accessories. And I think it was like from the 13th century, something like that. So it's been around a long time, but it's, obviously a great conversation starter as well. So,
yeah, I know when you told me haberdasher, I couldn't even say it at first. So it's definitely a conversation starter. So that's the word of the day, haberdasher.
Yes.
You learned it here on Pull Up Podcast. So you mentioned that you've been into this for a long time as far as fashion. You've been doing this for 9 years, but you've been steeped in fashion for a long time. I'm sure you're a stylish kid growing up, and it worked out that way for you. But how did you transition into this career?
Gotcha. Well, I always say, because people ask me, how'd you get started? And I always say it really started before I was born. My mom, is one of 10 kids, oldest girl. And when she, met my dad and they got married as a young couple, I just remember, when she learned how to sew, making her own clothes.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid, we'd go to the fabric stores, we'd pick out patterns and fabrics, and then she'd make my little outfits, and that's what I wore until really probably third, fourth grade. And,
wow.
And then, I wasn't as cool because everyone else had, the name brand stuff, so to speak. But so in my mind, I didn't think I was that cool, but reality was I had better clothes than all of them because it was custom. But so I grew up around fashion, loving textiles, never got into the making of the product, but just more of the design and the style and the fashion.
Right.
And then had some stints doing some product training with Nike, and then, co-ran a Cole Haan store. So I'm a huge shoe guy. And so that's kind of how it started. But, I had fit issues. And so always finding shirts and things that fit well were always a problem for me. So
yeah, well, you and me both. And it's funny, at a point in time when I was in college, just trying to think of, I thought I was going to be a professional football player for 10 years. God had other plans for me. But one of the things I've always thought about was having clothing or professional attire for athletes, since our body was shaped different. So, I had a slim waist, big hips, big trunk. So I always had trouble just finding clothes. So to your point, it sounds like you also had this problem of being able to find the right clothes.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. One of my biggest challenges, I have 6 feet tall, but arm length of a 6'4" guy. So getting the sleeve length to fit right, then they think I'm 6'4" and 250, and it's a disaster.
It's a mess. So you were able to get into it, but is there become a haberdasher, and kind of you've always been inspired by design, materials, things of that nature, but is there a set way to get into this industry? If someone, they're watching this and they're thinking, wow, that seems like something pretty cool to do. I'm a stylish person. I want to jump into the industry. What are some steps that they can take to get into this? Is it something formal, or is it just something where they throw themselves out there?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is find a mentor. I actually am working with some stylists all the time to kind of help mentor them, in how to do this business. And so, they can reach out to me. But I think, having a basis in fashion, at least understanding, you don't have to necessarily have a formal education, although that can help.
Sure.
It doesn't teach you how to interact with people, how to define fit and some of those things. Those conversations I think develop over time, and finding someone to kind of mentor you is definitely important.
Yeah, so. That's great advice. And so, are you willing to be a mentor? I know you have a heavy plate, so we'll make sure to drop the details so that you guys can get in contact with Alvin. But to your point about just generally, you want to have a good fashion sense, and it's beyond just the fashion. It's how you talk to people. It's a lot more than that. There's a lot of people who may think they don't need a stylist or a haberdasher or men's clotheir. So, is it necessary to have one? And if so, what are some of the pros and cons of going down that route of having a personal stylist?
Well, I look at it this way. We have teachers to help educate us.
Sure.
You were an athlete. I was an athlete. You have a coach to help you in, whatever sport you're in.
Right.
You might then have a trainer for the gym, for the weight room, so that you're doing the proper exercises for your sport. Some, depending on the level, we're going to have sports psychologists.
Right.
So there's trainers, there's coaches. Even if you're in business, right? You have mentors, you have business coaches and things like that. I look at myself as just another form of a coach.
Okay, I like that.
Coaching my clients on how to, better present themselves to the world. And you had mentioned kind of a good point. Style is not just your clothing, right? It's how you travel. Are you the hiking, backpacking kind of traveler, or are you the posh hotel person? It's what do you drink at Starbucks if you're a coffee guy or a latte or whatever. I'm a tea guy, right? That's all your personal style, right? And so I kind of help guys not just with their fashion stuff, but just kind of help them figure out who they are sometimes, through the conversations that we have over periods of time. Because usually when I start working with someone, it's a long-term relationship typically. So
that's a good point. And I know for me, I always thought myself as a super fashionable guy, but when I had questions on exactly what to wear on certain outfits, the wedding day, things of that nature, you obviously were able to help me out. And just for those questions that I have, you're able to tap in and know what is Lanston looking for? What is his style? And how can, based off these choices, knowing him, how can I bring that out and make sure that it looks great and that that I'm prepared for my day? And so you definitely did that. So I can see that firsthand on the benefit of having a haberdasher on deck, so to speak.
Absolutely, yeah. My goal is to make sure that you look your best in all aspects of your life, really.
Right.
So,
Yeah, well, that's about you and just kind of how to get into the career. But the nuts and bolts of this is we're going to talk about men's fashion. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to jump into it and talk about a little bit of clothing.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So let's talk about professional attire. Let's talk about what you do on a day-to-day. Obviously, we're on our Sunday's best today.
Exactly.
This is a shirt styled by you, so thank you. Appreciate that. Just wanted to jump into it. So when I want to buy professional attire, or the listener want to buy professional attire, what are some of the main things that they should consider? Between fit, versatility, there's so many different things to look at when you look at a suit. What are some of the things that you hear most common, or some just advice that you can give people as they're looking for suits?
So I would say there's a couple of things, and some of it's going to be based on kind of where they are financially and professionally, right?
Right.
But first and foremost, I would say fit above all else, because the reality is you can have a $5,000 suit that is ill-fitting and it doesn't look good.
That's a good point.
You can have a $300 suit that fits impeccably, that looks good.
Right.
Now, the issue then later becomes that $300 suit obviously is not as the same level of quality.
Sure.
So it's not going to last as long. And so you've got to recycle some of those things a little more, especially if you don't have a lot of options. But I would say fit first.
Okay.
And then invest in quality, but do it in a way that's basic. For an example,
okay,
like That's a beautiful sport coat.
Thank you.
Everyone wants, like, if this was your first jacket, this is the jacket, or this is the jacket that everyone's going to gravitate to.
Right.
The problem with that is that jacket and this jacket are very memorable. Mm-hmm. And if you only have one, then I know you wore this on Tuesday.
Right.
I know you wore it on Friday.
You're right about that.
I know you wore it on Monday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this the only jacket this guy has, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not the best investment. So you've got to think about, especially if you're starting out, versatility matters. So, you get fit, get quality as much as you can, and then get versatility, because, you can change a look of a solid blue or a gray, jacket with a pocket square with a shirt, all of those things to make it look different.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas I can't make that jacket look different.
Right.
It is what it
jacket,
is. Right. And it's great, but it's very memorable.
So there's certain colors that you'll say if someone needed three suits, they had enough money or funds to buy, 3 suits. Right. I mean, would you recommend just black, gray, and blue? Or, I mean, what would you recommend?
That's the easy answer.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it in that order.
Okay.
I actually don't own a black suit.
Do you not?
I don't.
Okay.
I probably should get one at some point.
Right, just to have.
But yeah, I don't. I have a black dinner jacket, but I would say you do blue, and I would say not. You can do either a navy or a medium blue, and then like a charcoal would be my first 2 suit options, and then maybe go with a black or something like that.
Right.
And then get a sport coat.
Okay.
That works with all of the pants
right.
of those suit jackets, because then you can make them as suit separates.
Yeah, those are my favorite suits, by the way. Like charcoal colored gray suits, along with like kind of a darker. I like kind of darker shades of blue.
Yeah,
I mean those are just classic, timeless suits, and I think for both of those suits, you can either wear black or brown for both of those. So I mean, it changes the look at least a little bit to make it more versatile.
Yeah, and they're year round.
Right.
Which, you can wear them summer, you can wear them in the winter. Like if you did a light gray suit or a light blue suit, the problem with that is come November, December, you shouldn't be wearing them
right.
unless you're down in like Florida, right? So some of the geographic does matter, but typically, if you shouldn't be wearing a light blue or light gray suit in the winter.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Makes a lot of sense to me. And then as far as the different ways to break things down, I mean, I was going to a meeting the other day and they said wear business casual, then at night, but during the day business. Then we had one formal event. And so can you break down what the differences are? It probably is a little objective or subjective, but could you break down kind of what the differences are in those categories? And if you wouldn't mind, kind of a classic go-to for each one of those different settings.
So daytime business, right? So kind of like what you had mentioned, I know what you do, so it's easy for me to say, all right, well, you wear this, right?
Right.
But just being general, I would say if it's business specific and professional, I would probably have on a suit.
Okay.
I would pick either that medium blue or that medium gray.
Right.
And depending on the scenario, and that person should know what their environment is, tie or no tie. Right. Is kind of your latitude there.
Okay.
Probably lean toward tie.
Right. Rather be overdressed than underdressed.
Exactly. You can
always take the tie.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You can always hide. If nobody else is wearing a tie, take that thing off.
Right.
Excuse yourself to the restroom, whatever. You don't want to do that on the floor, but take that tie off, stick it in the pocket. You're good, right? And then you said evening was what they called it, more business casual.
Well, the evening, for that particular evening, more business casual. Exactly.
Gotcha. So in that scenario, depends on the level of sophistication.
Right.
I would keep it simple, and I would probably keep the trousers on from your suit.
Would you? Okay.
Keep that shirt on potentially.
Okay.
And then put a sport coat on.
Okay. Switch out the jacket.
Right. Switch out the jacket.
Okay.
Then you're not packing a ton of stuff.
Right.
Maybe. Just kind of depends on the scenario. Or you could, for example, let's say you were doing that suit, during the day with a white shirt and a tie.
Right.
Keep the suit on, change the shirt.
Right.
And have a more fun, patterned shirt, no tie, you're good.
No, pretty nice and simple.
Exactly. And then you said what? Dinner was like a formal?
But then we had
they were making this tough.
Right. We had a formal event. Wear your best. Tuxedos. I mean, anything was you're good to go there. I mean, people are dressing kind of to the T. So
here's a way to cheat in that scenario.
Okay.
All right. So we'll just assume you have a medium gray suit.
Okay.
So wear that medium gray suit, white shirt with a tie during the day.
Okay.
simple pocket square.
Right.
For your happy hour, you have that off time, keep that suit on, change the shirt out completely, no tie, change the pocket square. That suit now looks totally different.
Right.
Now for that formal event, keep the pants on, have a nice smoking slipper, a more formal shoe.
Okay.
You know, and then bring your dinner jacket.
Gotcha.
And then you only had to bring one extra jacket.
Right.
And a couple of shirts.
Right.
And 2 shoes.
Man.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's why you get paid the big bucks for things like
things like a pair of jeans in there so you can go home, or a 5-pocket pants so you can catch the plane or whatever, you know.
Obviously, COVID is a real thing. We're on the tail end, hopefully, knock on wood. We're on the tail end. So has COVID impacted the way that people dress, or just how has COVID impacted the industry just in general as far as professionals? So
COVID was obviously a sad time and a difficult time for everyone.
Right.
It was especially a sad time for the way people dressed. Right. I'm looking at you. Right. I'm looking at you, and I'm on the other side of the camera.
Are you talking about the sweats that everyone was wearing, or just the suit from the belt up?
I told my guys, we'll put pants on. Always wear pants. Because
you don't want to be that guy.
What if you forgot something and you needed to get a step away from your desk and you didn't realize how much Zoom? We'll always have pants on.
Yes, that's good.
But here's the thing: what I told guys, there was a couple of options, and if you have a deconstructed blazer,
can you break down what's the deconstructed blazer?
So, great question. So you have your traditional suit jacket,
right?
That has all of the chest and shoulder structure and padding kind of in here that keeps it very structured,
right?
Then you have what's called a soft jacket. So you basically remove half of that. This is a soft jacket, so it's got a little less, so it's a little more relaxed, a little more function.
Okay.
A deconstructed jacket, basically you get rid of all of that structure in the shoulder and chest, so it feels more like a cardigan,
right?
Only it's a sport coat.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it's amazing. Okay. You look put together.
Right.
You can wear it, and on Zoom you look like you're wearing a suit.
Right.
And then throw on, have a handful of your button downs, and you can still wear a pair of chinos or something like that, or a nice pair of jeans, something that's comfortable. Get out of the sweats. You wouldn't wear that to work, so why are you wearing that to your Zoom work, right? Is kind of my philosophy. And then I did a lot of knit shirts, custom knits, and this is one of them, and it's a long sleeve. It looks like a dress shirt, but this is actually a knit. So it's and it's kind of like a polo.
Right.
And super comfortable. It moves. It's comfortable. It's easy.
Okay.
So step it up on Zoom, honestly. I mean, at least if you're not going to throw on a jacket, because you don't have a deconstructed blazer or a cardigan or something like that. I mean, I had the AC cranked up, so I could always do that.
Me too.
But at least have a button-down shirt on,
right? And
a pair of chinos or a 5-pocket pant.
Yeah.
Pretend you're going to the office.
Right. I totally agree. It's a weird dynamic because some people are staying at home, and I think they're going to forever adopt just the button up and the boxers. I feel like that's going to be their new look.
Right.
But there's a lot of people like myself where we're starting to go back into offices. So maybe style has changed. Maybe you just need an upgrade or whatever it may be. But I think it's always important just to know kind of the simple things that you can do, especially with the climate during COVID. I feel like it's just important to as a refresher, if anything, on how you're supposed to dress when you're in these office settings.
Right. And hey, Zoom happy hour, do your thing.
Right. Yeah.
You wear whatever you want to wear.
Yeah.
If you're on happy hour with your buddies.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, let's do a little better. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit for our next question. You mentioned kind of accessories, how you can change into a pocket square. You have a nice pocket square there. How those are certain things you can add to change to the look or enhance the look. So, I mean, how do you match accessories, and can you break down some of the most common accessories? I mean, from watch, pocket square, you have your ties, tie clips, the whole nine. I mean, there's so many different things. So what are some common, maybe a better question, or what are some common things for people to start off with if they want to just have that kind of starter guide of some of the accessories? What are some of the most common ones that they should start to consider?
So I would say watch is important. Sure. But here's the thing with watches. It's funny. I have seen guys, and this was pre-COVID.
Okay.
I'm in a meeting with a client. Someone else walks in. I do a lot of meetings sometimes in a coffee shop, etc.
Okay.
And a guy in this beautiful suit, great shoes. I look, he's got this like his running watch, right? You know, I don't know what it was, but it was bad.
Right.
I'm like, you've ruined this whole beautiful look with this terrible watch that you should be wearing to the gym. You know, heart monitor watch, whatever it was, right? You know, I mean, here's the reality. I mean, you have a great watch on. That's an easy. Guys don't have a lot of jewelry, you know, in general. So a nice watch is easy. If you know, and if you're going to do the Apple Watch, which is fine, I've got one on right now. Spend $50 and get a nice band. Right. Yeah. I mean, you can change this out. I have like 4 bands.
Sure. That's
so this one I have one that's leather, you know, and then you know, get a real watch. If you're not into the Apple Watch or that kind of thing, or if you don't like watches because everyone's got a phone in their pocket, that's fine. You don't have to do bracelets, but if you're going to do bracelets, don't, in my opinion, don't have 50 of them on.
Right.
And to me, it needs to mean something to you, for, you know, but that's just the way I am about jewelry. If it doesn't mean anything, I'm not going to wear it. Right. But then simple things like you had mentioned pocket squares. This is an easy way to accessorize a jacket, but you don't need to go crazy with them. Right. I have quite a few pocket squares, but the ones that I wear the most, I have gray and white. Okay. They go with everything.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's simple. And then I have a few others that are floral or have some patterns and things like that. And every now and then I'll pop some of those in. But honestly, the ones that get the most use are my solid gray and my white.
Yeah. And pocket squares are super affordable. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, $30, $40. I mean, you could probably get one for $15 somewhere. I mean, on sale. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of options. But I'm not into the little lapel thing. Some guys are. I think it can get to be a little much. Right. It just depends on the guy. Okay. And I always say, minimal is better. You know, you don't need the pocket square and the lapel pin.
Right. Pick one. Yeah, pick one out of that.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah, well, that's a good advice because there's so many different pieces you can wear. Even I wrote down here, well, you even know from my wedding, I had a pocket watch. Yeah. And that's a little different. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't see too many people walking around with pocket watches, but again, it's a different accessory as well. Any thoughts on that? Like just on like how to properly.
I love a pocket watch. Okay. I have a pocket watch and it's beautiful. And I highly recommend it. It's old school and people take notice. Right. And that's a great accessory. Yeah. You know, and you know, depending on if you're going to do it, you know, you had a vest for the wedding, so you can do it on the vest in that scenario. Otherwise, it's great. You know, most custom trousers have the pocket watch pocket, that little small pocket, so that you can stick it there. And clip the chain thing on. I just think that's a beautiful classic look. Right. And people notice the little detail.
They do. You know? Well, that's even thing. Less is more a lot of times. And I used to be a guy that just wore a tie clip. That was kind of my nice watch, a tie clip. And every once in a while, I'm spacing out on what they call the little
cufflinks.
Cufflinks. Every once in a while in a certain formal event. So are you supposed to match your cufflinks with your tie clip, or what are you actually matching it with?
That's a great question. Only time that probably should match. Well, I would say if you want to match it, a good time to match it would be formally.
Formally, okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
I just think that's a little too matchy for me. Okay. So, but for the guys who are not creative, then do that formally. Otherwise, to me, have it be a little different because the cufflink is special. Yeah. And you know, and I'm a big cufflink guy. I love cufflinks. I don't do a lot of traditional ties, so the tie bar I used to use a fair amount when I was wearing more regular ties, but I started doing bow ties. I don't even remember how long ago, but so obviously you don't have, you know, that's it. That's it within itself. Right. But I do like a tie bar when you're wearing traditional ties. It just keeps it in its place. Right. So
yeah, and that's a big thing when you're actually moving around functionally. A tie clip is actually very helpful. Yeah. You know. So.
Yeah. And there is a way to wear them. You know, the tie clip shouldn't be wider than the tie.
Sure, right. You know, don't want it too low. You don't want it way down here or too high.
Exactly. I mean, you should see it a little bit. Right. But yeah, you know, and then you can have fun with it. Like I have one that has a mustache or something. Right. And it's kind of fun.
But. Yeah, and I like those accessories because it's a good way to express yourself. I mean, as you can have mention that charcoal gray suit again. You have that charcoal gray suit. You put a little pocket square in. And then at that time, you can have a little bit of fun with whether it's your tie clip or whatever it may be. So
or cufflink. Yeah, because you might. Yeah, I have a decent collection of cufflinks, and they're just fun. Yeah, and sometimes I'll mix and match them.
Right, and I think it's such a little detail, but it's things that people do notice. I always get compliments, or people do notice the the cufflinks and things of that nature. So like whether it may seem like it's a little thing, I feel like it goes a very long way.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a pretty cool stat that I'm gonna read off to you, and I'm gonna tie this into a question. Okay. So this is gonna be in regards to being clean and tidy. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So,
all right, my mind is going.
Go through it. Let me break it down for you. So there's a study: 500 employees, and 500 employers. Okay. And then the point of this study was to find out what's the most important thing for employers. What are they looking at?
Okay.
And so number one is timeliness, which makes sense. You want to be on time.
Okay. So pocket watch or watch or your phone. Helpful.
Yeah, helpful to actually know how to read those things. Number two was preparedness.
Okay.
And number three, believe it or not, was being well groomed. So it's one of the top three things interviewers and employers look at when you go to a job. So it's obviously important to be well groomed. So considering outside of this suit, what are your thoughts on why it's so important to be well groomed? Why do you think it's the third most important thing for interviewers when they're looking at candidates?
First of all, I would like send me that link that study. That sounds like a fun study.
Okay,
I'm sure there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Wow. To me, it almost goes without saying, but like if you're gonna take the time to do all of this,
right,
and then not be groomed, you're missing the boat. And you're missing probably one of the most important details. And the reality is employers are looking for, are you detail oriented? And you might have that on your resume in one of the bullet points, right? Because everyone does detail oriented, right? It works independently, whatever, that stuff. It's been a long time since I've done the resume, but it shows the level of attention to detail. And as simple as just combing your hair, brushing your hair, having your fingernails clean. Right. I mean, it's not that big of a deal,
edge yourself up. Not saying you can't have a beard, but maybe edge it up or whatever.
Make it, at least make it look like you tried.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect because nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting those are the top. I mean, it makes sense because they're looking for, you're now a representative of that company.
Right.
And, and it's just like I tell my clients, you included.
Yeah.
I'm never going to tell you something looks good if it doesn't, because you represent me once we start working together,
Like Alvin told me to wear this.
Yeah. And they're like, I don't need his number.
Right.
So it's like you represent me, and you represent that company, and they want, you to put your best face forward, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? So
and we're having this conversation not to shame anybody or to say like, hey, you can't at a point in time, it was said that if you had dreadlocks, you weren't like a professional. We're not nowhere near saying what that piece. But a big part of when people do put on their suit is to give off an image, especially during the interview process or when you're going to work. So it's important, and we just want to have that full, robust conversation and not leave anything out. That when you pick out a good suit and you're learning from Alvin on some of the things to look at, that you also have to consider being well groomed, making sure that you have everything put together because people are looking. And these are some of the things that may make or break you from getting a job. So we just want to do our due diligence to talk about the full picture and not to leave those type of things out. And so we mentioned even the haircut and maybe having the nails, making sure those things are, nails aren't dirty, but it's even as far as shoes, I know not everyone can just afford the best shoes, but if you can clean off your shoes and do what you can for what you got, it goes a long way as far as even pulling in the entire outfit together, because that's part of being well groomed. And I was watching Shark Tank, and I remember one episode where one of the investors mentioned that one of the first things he looked at is someone's shoes. He wants to look at your shoes to see how you carry yourself. And that's how he looks and makes that judgment call. So we all got to be aware of those things. You'll hate to have the best product, the best pitch ever, but for whatever reason, he's turned off because your shoes don't look where it needs to look. So
that speaks volumes, and partially because I'm a shoe guy. I have a lot of shoes and I love shoes, but it's just a simple thing. So many guys don't know, and actually, I would say more guys than females shine their shoes. Yeah. But there's so many guys who don't, and it's not that big of a deal. I mean, go get yourself a simple cleaner and conditioner. It doesn't have to be fancy. Get an old dish, a washcloth. use that if that's all you've got, and then a simple polish. It doesn't even have to be color specific.
Right.
It'll just enhance the original colors of those shoes, and you're good. I mean, it's not that hard.
It's not hard, and you can get them almost anywhere. It's a few bucks, and it really, more than anything, is we're not saying get your new shoes. It's not that hard. I mean, it's attention to detail, taking the time to do those things, and people do look at that, and they do consider if you're doing those things. So
bad pair of shoes ruins a great shoe.
It does
all the time. And fellas, ladies, pay attention. If you're in the pool dating, the women will look at your shoes.
They do.
Guys look at shoes. You know, I mean, regardless of what you're doing, the shoes do matter. Don't forget that. Don't forget the rest of it.
Yeah. And so we have to talk about it again. We want a big, robust picture. So now appreciate your details on that. I actually have another stat that's going to we're going to end on this question here, but I just want to read this stat too. So they said 41% of males, 47% of female hiring managers believe that applicants dressed formally is better fit for their company than someone dressed casually, despite if that person dressed casually has a better resume. So, I mean, it's pretty clear why we're having this conversation, right? Like, people are all looking at it, and you could be the better candidate, but if you're dressed casually or it's not put together, or you can be an all right candidate and you're dressed great, you're probably going to have a better chance of getting that job if you're the latter than the former. So
it totally makes sense. I didn't realize that was the percentages, but if you think about it, people remember what?
Right.
We're so visual. We hear you, but we hear you after we see you.
That's
typically
true. Right.
Unless
human
you're
nature.
just we're very visual people, and so you like you said, you might have a great resume, but the last thing I remember is, man, you look like a hot mess. Right.
Yeah.
So I can't have you representing me, my department, my company, because you just don't look like you should be there.
Right.
I can work with you if you're not completely refined and don't have quite all the skills, but you look put together, you look like you're trying.
Right.
And people remember that, and I know specifically, my wife, is a funny story. One of her first hires when she was hiring, I forget the position. It was either a PT or an OT or whatever the person was.
Okay.
But the one candidate came in a suit, and she was the only one. And this is a therapy role, right? You're not wearing a suit.
Scrubs or something.
You're not wearing a suit while you're practicing, and they don't wear scrubs, but during practicing, but that is an option.
Right.
But yeah, she showed up wearing a suit, and she was very memorable. No one else wore a suit. And yes, she was qualified, obviously, right? And there probably were some other candidates that might have had more experience and better qualified, but she was wearing a suit.
Right.
It showed that she cared.
Right.
It mattered.
Yeah.
She got hired.
Then she got hired. Okay, got a couple more questions for you. You're still good?
Yeah, I got water. I'm good.
Yeah, I need a little bit of H2O myself.
Let's do this. The collar's still good.
Collar, all right. We're good to go.
Make sure we're straight here.
Okay, so let's jump into this next one. This is a bit of a fun segment. So fashion faux pas.
Oh.
Okay, so maybe I'll break it down because I don't know, everyone may not know fashion faux pas. So at the end of the day, it's a fashion no-no, something that you should not do. Am I explaining what a faux pas is for the best part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So fashion faux pas. So as we're looking for suits, we're going in, we're at a nice little department store. What are some fashion faux pas to be cautious of? For example, I've heard you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day. I don't know how true that is. Maybe you can address that. But what are some of the fashion faux pas that we should be cautious of as we're looking for suits?
Got it. So let's address that white. Wearing white after Labor Day. Technically, you can.
Okay.
I don't even remember. There's some history on it. I'll have to find it. I had read it at one point, but call it winter white. Then after Labor Day,
gotcha.
Then it's I'm wearing my winter whites.
Gotcha.
then you're good.
Okay.
But I think part of it too is you didn't wear white after Labor Day a lot of times because the weather changed and your clothes got dirtier.
Right.
So that's probably one of the simpler reasons.
Right.
I could be totally wrong on that. I'll have to go research that now. It's been a while.
Okay.
But I would say some fashion faux pas on buying suits in a department store. They've gotten better in the sense that guys with hard to fit bodies can't usually buy a jacket and the pant as separates.
Right.
And so you've compromised in some area. So not going to a tailor is a huge faux pas. Use a tailor if you're buying something off the rack.
Right.
Get your pants hemmed.
Right.
So many guys don't get their pants hemmed, and they've got like this pool of fabric on around their shoe. It's awful.
Right.
That's a faux pas.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
So don't do that.
What about patterns? I see a nice pattern suit. I still like a patterned shirt. Is there a limit to these patterns or?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Kind of like we had talked about earlier, I always bring it back to, as long as you have at least 2 solid color suits, then you can start moving into your patterns.
Okay.
And then you're fine. But to start out with a pattern, that's a faux pas.
Okay.
Because everyone's going to remember that suit, and you have nowhere to go from there.
Okay.
Right? And then pattern on pattern, most people don't do it well.
So Michael Irvin, when he's on TV and he has his patterns and on top of patterns with a pattern, the pocket square, I mean, we don't want to call him out. I'm sorry, Michael.
Some guys way overdo it.
Right.
Think of it this way. What am I supposed to look at visually, right? Like this is a really small pattern that really transcends as a solid. Mm-hmm. Then I've got a bigger pattern here, right. And then I've got a solid.
Sure.
Now I could have had a pocket square with stuff, right? And then I could have had a lapel pin stuff. Right. Then I could have had a tie on, right, with more pattern. Right. But then visually, it's like, pardon my language, really, it's like visual vomit.
Right.
Like, what is my eye supposed to look at? I'm confused.
Sure.
Tone it down. It's like, pick something and go with that, but be minimal, So if you're going to do pattern on pattern, either do big pattern, small pattern.
Okay.
Or big pattern, small pattern.
Okay.
Do it in reverse, but then keep your accessories simple.
Yeah.
Or if this was a solid, then you could have fun with this accessory and have that be like floral or stripes or whatever, right? And you could even have it as not neatly folded. It could be more kind of poofed out, right? But again, pick something and go with it. Don't have everything competing with each other.
Yeah, sounds like it's all about balance. Yeah, and that's as you were speaking, that's just the big thing that came to mind is if you have a solid shirt, I have a solid shirt, I can do something like this. I mean, obviously, you mentioned you got to have more subtle patterns in your shirt so you can do something like this. Yeah. If I had a very plaid shirt, plaid jacket, I don't need a plaid pocket square.
Or even a floral or some other pattern. It's just too much for the eye. It's like, I don't know what to look at.
So, Alvin, I have one final question for you. Okay. So before I let you go, I just wanted to address for some of those people out there who can't afford a very nice custom suit.
Right.
They're sitting out listening to what we're talking about, and they're saying that they want to make sure that they look professional for an interview or whenever they're going to have their next event. They don't have the means to spend a couple $1,000 on a suit. What would you recommend for that person to do?
Got it. So a couple of things. Custom isn't as expensive as a lot of people think.
Okay.
You can, do a custom suit depending on the fabric and things like that for as little as $700 to as much as, $10,000, right? I mean, the sky's the limit, so to speak. So there's a huge range in there. Mm-hmm. But understanding that not everyone even has $700, right, to spend on a suit, there are options retail that you can go to. There are a lot of department stores that, they'll have sales during the holidays and, and those kind of things. Be a smart shopper. There's outlets.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is do the best that you can from a quality perspective.
Okay.
Save a little bit of money to buy that next level, if possible. And I always say that the suits that are going to last the longest are not the suits and that are going to look the best long term are not synthetic.
Okay.
Your polyesters and your nylons and all of that stuff. They look good for a minute.
Yep.
But you spent $200-$300 on that in some cases, and now you're replacing it every year.
Right.
When if you would have bought a $500 or $600 suit, saved your money.
Right.
Or gone to an outlet or something like that, or you might get a better quality suit. And look for something that's a wool blend. Okay. It's actually more breathable.
Right.
You're not going to sweat You know, like people think, oh, wool, I can't wear a wool suit in the summer. Yeah, you can.
Right.
Wool is very lightweight. It's very breathable, depending on the wool. Obviously, you're getting a summer weight type of wool. So there are options. But if you're going to do that, the tailor is your best friend. Get your stuff tailored. Right. It's not that expensive. If you're going to spend a couple $100s on a suit, spend, $50 tailoring it.
Right.
Get the pants hemmed, make sure the sleeve length, there's all the little nuances, but the tailor will help you.
Right.
The tailor is your best friend,
Yeah.
He should know you. He should know your name.
He should know your name. And very few people can buy off the rack and it fits perfect. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I never can. So, and for all those details we were talking about, that can just go a long way for making you look well-groomed and professional. So, I second that. And also from someone who bought those $200 suits, try to get it tailored. You have to do what you have to do at the beginning. Yep. But I tore through them eventually. I tore through them pretty quickly. Whereas the suits I've gotten from you and some other people, I haven't had any issues. So it does go a long way if someone can invest a little bit more money to get a good suit. Part of what we're going to do too is we're not here as lip service. We do want to put money where our mouth is. We know that not everyone can afford a suit. So we are going to actually have a give a suit contest that we're going to make sure that someone can have a suit and have that custom experience. And we're going to actually do that starting here soon. So be looking out for details for anybody who or if you're a listener and yourself that you need a new suit, go ahead and get ready to put your name in the ringer. And we're going to set something pretty cool up to where you guys can have that full custom experience. With that being said, Alvin, how can, if someone heard this and you said you're into mentoring, if someone wants to get a suit from you, how can they get in contact with you?
Gotcha. A couple ways. Obviously, I have a website, Cystled, so the letter C and then styled.com. You can always reach me there. There's an option to, shoot me an email, etc. Instagram, Alvin Cooper is what I'm at on Instagram. You can also see, if you're on Instagram and you look at my profile page, you'll see Denver Haberdasher. And if you click on that one, that's nothing but client in, pictures of clothing that I've done.
Okay.
Everything from your formal stuff to your casual stuff. So you can see just product, but you can also just reach me at Alvin Cooper.
Okay. Well, Alvin, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Absolutely. And again, please like, subscribe, post your comments, and we'll see you next week on the Pull Up Podcast.